Welcome to LSB Feaster's Radio Aircheck and Classic TV channel.
Next, the CBS Morning Report with Allan Jackson, brought to you in part by your Sinclair dealer. Concern in Canada, reaction to a visitor.
The President of France, Charles de Gaulle, on a formal state visit to Canada, is finally going to arrive at the federal capital of the country late today after spending the first 80% of his time in the minority French-speaking section. His last major appearance there, a speech and a reception this morning in Montreal, the city that is the stronghold of French-Canadian separatism, which he has so blatantly encouraged, to the dismay of most French and English-speaking Canadians. A look at the wrangle in a moment.
Let's go where the big cash prizes are. You could wind up rich, and it's not very far. If you want good luck for you and your car,
everything starts with Sinclair.
How'd you like to win $2,500 cash? 500, or maybe 100. You can win money at Sinclair dealers playing the Dino Dollars game. Win instant cash, too, and you don't have to buy a thing. Over 100 winners at any Sinclair station where you see the Dino Dollars sign. Any licensed driver can win up to $2,500. Void where prohibited by law. Hardtop convertible or sedan. Get Dino power with nickels soon as you can. Go to the friendly Sinclair man.
Everything starts with Sinclair.
Drive with care and buy Sinclair.
Play the Dino Dollars game.
The Prime Minister of Canada, Lester Pearson, said yesterday somewhat testily that Canadians do not need to be liberated. That was his reply to President de Gaulle's highly undiplomatic sally into Canada's internal affairs, endorsing the separatist demands of a minority in Quebec. But Charles de Gaulle has never been one to be discouraged by rebuffs, and he only added fuel to the political fire he started with a further remark at a dinner in Montreal last night, saying he will rejoice profoundly if his visit has been useful to the French-speaking citizens of Quebec province. A militant minority of that province has been demanding secession of Quebec from the English-speaking remainder of Canada. But this is a minority even among the Quebecois, the residents of Quebec province. More than half of the telegrams sent to Prime Minister Pearson protesting de Gaulle's heavy-handed meddling were from French-speaking Canadians of Quebec. This demand for secession or separatism is not new, and at this point it must be considered primarily emotional, stimulated by the determination of a minority to maintain its distinctive cultural identity. But much of this determination stems from the emotional and historical conflict between the two peoples of the Old World, the English and the French, and north of the border, the latter at least haven't yet been able to accept a common identity in the new. The French Canadians like to claim that they are the original Canadians, pointing out that they explored the interior of the continent long before the British settlers arrived. But the British did arrive and, with some difficulty, molded a single country, finally uniting it just 100 years ago in a confederation of the Canadian provinces. In this, the British were prompted, in part, by concern that the Union Army to the south, now finished with its own civil war, might begin looking northward. The French Canadians went along reluctantly, and some, the militant separatists of today, are still brooding about it. But what they, and apparently President de Gaulle, refuse to admit is that the separatism they are demanding would mean the loss of the French culture they are trying to protect. A Montreal banker has said that in event of secession, there would be a wholesale flight of capital out of Quebec. The Quebec dollar would undergo a spiraling inflation, and the only available rescuer would be the United States. And that, said the banker from Montreal, would be the end of the French language and French culture in North America. Politically, a secession of Quebec, in the middle of the country, would leave Canada divided into two English-speaking halves, one or both of which would inevitably drift into closer relationship with the United States. Confronted with these alarming alternatives, even the Quebecois are likely to preserve, even if reluctantly, the unity they accepted reluctantly 100 years ago.
The CBS Morning Report with Allan Jackson has been brought to you in part by your Sinclair dealer.
Would Wouldn't you really rather have a Buick? A Buick? A brand new Buick? Wouldn't you really rather have a Buick this year? Whoa.
Who wouldn't like to be driving a Buick this summer? You would, wouldn't you? Then why aren't you? If you think you can't afford one, you're wrong. Buicks are probably the biggest bargains on the road. 8 out of 10 people are paying the price of a Buick whether they get one or not. So why not put your money on a brand new Buick? Enjoy yourself this year.
Wouldn't you really rather have a Buick? A Buick? A brand new Buick? All the bright, exciting new Buicks are here.
780 on your radio, WBBM, and WBBM FM, the talk of Chicago. From WBBM Radio News, the top stories at 7. Last night's bitter fighting has pushed Detroit to the brink as the worst racial violence of our time. The official death toll stands at 33 dead. There are unconfirmed reports of 7 others killed. The list of injured tops 1,500. Property damage, scattered over nearly every section of the nation's 5th largest city, is estimated at over $200 million. Negro snipers, many using automatic weapons, attacked 2 police stations, a fire station, and a National Guard command post. Some calm seems to be returning as daybreak again comes to that troubled city. Here is a report from Len Walter in Detroit.
There is at this hour an unusual hush over the city of Detroit. The police radios no longer crackle as they did just a few hours ago. The sounds of gunfire no longer echo. With this quiet comes official optimism that the trouble is, for the most part, over. Detroit Mayor Jerome Kavanaugh issued an early morning statement indicating that the incidences of looting, sniping, and arson were down. He then suggested for the second day in a row that businesses reopen and people show up for work as usual. The quiet comes not without bitter battle and more loss of life. The death toll climbed to 33. A Connecticut woman was one of the victims, shot by a sniper while sitting in a second-floor motel lounge. A 4-year-old child was found shot to death. 3 Negro youngsters were found in another motel, victims of shotgun blasts. There is no certainty, however, that they died as part of the civil strife. Police in one 6-block area were pinned down by sniper fire and forced to withdraw. Only with heavy support from Army personnel and National Guardsmen was the area secured. Now, local and state police, the Army, and the Guard continue their weary vigil, hoping that the worst is over. This is Len Walter in Detroit, returning you to WBBM in Chicago.
Police and National Guardsmen on the west side were firing at anything that moved, and sometimes at themselves, as reporter Ben Silver found.
Thompson said. There's an officer crouching down next to me. Something shooting. Who are they shooting at? There's policemen up on the roof now. Hey, there's a policeman on the roof. The yell goes out, there are policemen on the roof. The roof apparently where the sniper was, if there was a sniper. There were policemen on the roof. Apparently some of the policemen don't know about it. Shots are being fired in that direction.
Among the wounded in Detroit were 4 adults and a child hit when guardsmen seeking a sniper sprayed an apartment building with machine gun bullets. Besides Grand Rapids, where the 3 Negro volunteers were shot, another Michigan city reported trouble. In Saginaw, 100 miles northwest of Detroit, police said at least 8 persons were shot and wounded during an outbreak of sniping and arson. More than 50 persons were arrested. In Cambridge, Maryland, H. Rapp Brown, the chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, continued to elude a nationwide FBI search today. He's wanted on state charges of complicity in a Negro riot in Cambridge last night.
Do you think that all aerosol deodorants are alike? If you said right, you're wrong. There's one aerosol deodorant that's really different from the others. Menon push-button deodorant. Spray for spray, Menon push-button delivers more of the protective ingredient than the leading aerosol deodorant does. And that's an important fact, an important deodorant difference. And it's the reason why people who use Menon push-button are sure of getting real deodorant protection from the heat and tension of modern life. And you can have that personal protection, too, anytime you want it. Just make sure you use the deodorant that really delivers the goods. Menon Push-Button Deodorant. Remember, spray for spray, Menon Push-Button delivers more of the protective ingredient than the leading aerosol deodorant does. And now you've got the facts. Don't forget to go out and get Menon Push-Button Deodorant in the bright green can.
2 cities with past histories of racial outbreaks are back in the news this morning with relatively mild incidents. In Cleveland, Ohio, police reported a number of firebombs thrown in the city's east side, and one 71-year-old woman seriously burned when a firebomb landed on her bed. Alarm sounded again last night in Chicago also. John Osborne of station WBBM TV reports.
The angry ringing of burglar alarms and shouts of police to clear the streets signals the first racially hot night of the summer in Chicago. Police officials have been predicting a cool summer here, but late Tuesday and early Wednesday, a 10-block section of Madison Street, 2.5 miles west of the Loop, shook that hope. Looting broke out, some homemade bombs were thrown, and some shots were heard. Blue-helmeted task force police, 4 to a car, sealed off the area and moved down the street. Those who didn't move out when told to were arrested. Most moved, and there were few arrests. Jeering was heard, bricks were tossed at squad cars and news units. 1 out of every 4 store windows in the 10-block section was broken, and glass littered the streets and pavements. And on Chicago's south side, several persons were arrested near White Sox Park after some windows were shattered with rocks. Some stores were also looted. Robert Osborne, Chicago.
Here in Washington, the argument rages over responsibility for the riots, but one thing now seems certain: there will be investigations. CBS News correspondent Roger Mudd reports.
Congressional machinery is moving this morning toward establishment of a joint House-Senate committee with full subpoena power and unlimited funds to investigate America's racial violence. The resolutions, introduced by Republicans but with the support of Democrats, has been referred to the Rules Committees of the 2 branches. The Joint Committee proposal came at the end of a day in which Congress tried to blame everybody and everything for the rioting. The Republicans blamed President Johnson. The Democrats blamed cost-conscious Republicans. Some Democrats blamed Governor Romney. House Republican leader Ford intimated, ever so slightly, that the president wanted the riots to damage Romney's political standing. Liberals, of course, condemned the riots but said that Congress must attack the causes. Conservatives said the poverty program was just a bribe. One Southerner called the riots urban renewal, Northern style. But none spoke so bluntly as Democratic Senator Byrd of West Virginia, who declared, "No slum was ever planned to be a slum. No slum was ever built. Slums are developed by slummy people." Here again is Neil Strawser.
At least one Republican has departed from the budget-cutting line of some of his colleagues. Senator Charles Percy of Illinois said last night the nation must have both guns and butter.
If we continue to spend $66 million a day trying to save the people, the 16 million people of South Vietnam, while leaving the plight of the 20 million urban poor in our own country resolved, then I think we have our priorities terribly confused. The urban crisis in America must be assigned first priority.
But despite Percy's words, the Congress seems in little mood to enact new domestic programs, and in fact, the anti-poverty bill is being delayed in committee for fear it will be voted down in the current mood of congressional frustration at the violence in the big cities.
Here's an interesting question for the ladies this morning. Are you trying to cover up problem nails with nail polish? So many who suffer with chipping, breaking, splitting, and peeling fingernails try to solve these problems by covering up with polish, and it often does more harm than good. At last, there's a more effective way to help problem nails. It's the new Sally Hansen Hard as Nails discovery called Be Long, a nail hardener mending liquid that contains nylon fibers. And these nylon fibers form a strong, invisible shield that protects nails as they grow stronger and longer. Helps protect nails against breaking and chipping. Even helps hold a break or split together until the nail grows out. Be Long works on the nail surface, does not penetrate to harm the nail or the cuticle. Get Sally Hansen Be Long, the nail hardener with nylon fibers, today at Walgreens. Use Be Long, only $1.50, and see your nails grow naturally beautiful. Mostly sunny in Chicago today, high in the mid-80s. Here again is Neil Strawser.
B-52 heavy bombers have returned to the skies over North Vietnam this morning. The story from Saigon, Don Webster reporting.
B-52 bombers struck in North Vietnam today for the first time in more than 3 months. Heavy artillery and the danger from surface-to-air missiles in the north has restricted B-52 raids to South Vietnam in all but a very few instances recently. Right about noon today, the heavy bombers hit artillery positions, storage areas, and troop concentrations in the southernmost 4 miles of North Vietnam. It's an effort to reduce the pressure on Marine Corps units dug in near the demilitarized zone. In other interaction, 2 more American planes were lost over North Vietnam yesterday, bringing the total for the war to 617. The crew members of both planes are listed as missing. Heaviest ground fighting yesterday involved South Vietnamese troops, who report they killed 75 communists in a battle 12 miles north of Hue. The operation, called Lam Son 91, also resulted in 18 enemy prisoners. Friendly casualties were described as extremely light. The Lam Son series of operations is designed to extend the security perimeter around the ancient religious capital of Hue, a tactic that's taking a heavy toll on both sides so far in the Vietnam War. Don Webster, CBS News, Saigon.
France's President de Gaulle heads toward Ottawa and a possibly chilly reception from Canadian leaders today. His encouragement of French separatism already bringing a public scolding from Canada's Prime Minister Lester Pearson.
The people of Canada are free. Every province of Canada is free. Canadians do not need to be liberated. Indeed, many thousands of Canadians gave their lives in 2 world wars in the liberation of France and other European countries.
This is Maury Robinson with the de Gaulle Party. We'll learn this morning whether General de Gaulle takes seriously that rebuke administered by Prime Minister Lester Pearson. He's scheduled to speak this morning at the University of Montreal, his principal activity of the day before going on to Ottawa and the official Canadian state reception awaiting him there. The speech at the university will be a perfect opportunity for the French president. He can then temper his words if he chooses, explaining away his use of the term Free Quebec, which has aroused such a storm of protest. Or he can give further direction to those words, explaining what he means by them, as well as his frequent calls for French-speaking citizens here to be masters of their own destiny, masters in their own house. And as a final alternative, de Gaulle can simply ignore the Pearson admonition. As always with the French president, his course of action is unpredictable. Maury Robinson, CBS News, Montreal.
Pope Paul VI has left Istanbul today for a visit to the Turkish countryside and the reputed last home of the Virgin Mary. Cuba's Fidel Castro today celebrates the 14th anniversary of his revolutionary movement.
The question before the House these days is, how can I keep the flies and the mosquitoes and other biting insects from making summer miserable? And the answer is Walgreens Insect Repellent Spray, now at Walgreens Special Savings. A $179 aerosol can is only $129, and I suggest you get it today. All you have to do is mist Walgreens Insect Repellent Spray on your skin and clothing, and you can enjoy these summer days and evenings without having to put up with the irritating insect bites. That'll leave you strictly alone. Walgreens Insect Repellent Spray, completely safe, won't sting or stain. Mighty effective in making flies and mosquitoes and other insect pests give you a wide berth. Get it today at your Walgreens drugstore. That's Walgreens Insect Repellent Spray, a $1.79 14-ounce aerosol can, only $1.29. Proof again that your dollar buys more at your Walgreens drugstore. The Cubs moved back to 1 game behind St. Louis yesterday as the Cards downed Chicago 4-3. The loss came despite a rally in the ninth in which the Cubs sent Ted Savage racing for the plate with a tying run. He was nailed by catcher Tim McCarver. Tonight, the Cubs and St. Louis continue their scramble for the lead. Better news on the south side, where the Sox downed Cleveland twice, 3-1 and 6-5, and moved 2 games ahead of second-place Boston. The 6-5 score came at the end of a 16-inning marathon when Ken Berry slammed a 2-run homer, brought the Sox from behind to win. Tonight, the Sox again meet Cleveland at Comiskey Park. Waukegan, north of Chicago, has beefed up its 70-man police force with 130 additional officers from neighboring suburbs to ensure calm in the suburb, which was troubled by minor violence last night. Illinois Attorney General William Clark says he plans to seek injunctions against a number of Illinois firms that he says owe the state some $638,000 in sales taxes. The weather for today, cooler air on the way, sunny, becoming partly cloudy, warm with scattered showers and thunder showers later this afternoon. A high today of 84 to 89, cooler near the lake, partly cloudy, showers ending tonight, officially 71 degrees in downtown Chicago. The World News Roundup, partly recorded for broadcast at this time, was brought to you by your nearby Walgreens drugstore. That's a name to depend on. Walgreens, for quality, for savings. Dale McCarran reporting this news summary and other in the 24-hour-a-day coverage of top stories. Bulletins at any second on WBBM Radio.
We know where you want to go and how.
Allan makes the going great. Makes the going great. Allan makes the going great. Makes the going great.
You want to fly to Paris or hop to San Juan or cross the Pacific or roam the world. And you want an airline that's going places like you've never gone before. A takeoff you can't even feel. A warm red wine that tastes so good you can feel your French getting better. A stewardess that cooks like Maxime's of Paris and looks like out of this world.
Allan makes the going great. Makes the going great. Allan makes the going great. Makes the going great.
Pan Am's Flight 52 can take you from Chicago straight through to Paris any day you say. For reservations, see a Pan Am travel agent or call Pan Am at Randolph 66272.